Hello, my name is Andrew Devine, and this is my third video journal. A few things stood out to me in this section of the course. One thing that was of particular interest to me were the Madisonian platform. So, the James Madison platform that he laid out towards the end of his presidency was really interesting to me because in it he adopted a lot of federalist, which would be considered as federalist policies. But he was able to do that because the Federalist Party had recently just gone extinct. And some of those policies include strengthening the military. He started West Point Military Army Academy, and also the replaceable parts. Another thing he did was he renewed the Second National Bank of America. He also continued to support tariffs on imported goods and supported internal improvements such as the Erie Canal. But these are all considered Federalist policies because they're big federal government policies. And traditionally, these would be at odds with what Republicans would consider with what Republican policy. But I think this is an important lesson for us in our time because we can get so partisan in how we think. We get so dogmatic, right? The Republicans, big government, bad. But really, I think we have to see into reality. And when Madison saw what happened to the economy when the Second Bank of America was not renewed, I think I appreciate that he wasn't dogmatic, but he was only doing that because he was freed from the political party fighting. And so I just think in our time, we need to find a way to stop thinking so partisanly and to see and dogmatically and to see the reality. See that politics is not black and white, and that's nuanced, and there's tons of gray and so many grays. So anything, I think that's an interesting lesson for our time. I also found the election between Andrew Jackson and John Quincy Adams to be very interesting as well, and how that was really the first really heated personal election where they're making personal attacks on each other's characters. It's just crazy how we're so normalized to that now in elections, where back then it was such a new and stunning thing. And how Andrew Jackson was calling John Quincy Adams a monarchist, and how John Quincy Adams was calling Andrew Jackson's wife a whore. And it's wild that he did that. He had the guts to do that, given the fact that Andrew Jackson had literally killed a man for challenging his wife's honor. And now this guy is doing that again, and that's just, it's pretty crazy. I think Andrew Jackson in general was a fascinating character to learn about. And because before, all I'd heard about him is Andrew Jackson bad, Trail of Tears, he hates Indians. That's really all I knew about him. But there's a lot more to this person, and I think he did a lot of good things, and he was at least a strong leader nonetheless. I think how he handled the whole issue with the doctrine of nullification was pretty awesome, actually, and how that was a hot button issue. Can states nullify federal policies? And he hadn't really said anything about it. He was just quiet, all this stuff. And then they had that dinner party, and he makes his toast, and everyone's looking at him. They're looking to hear what's he gonna say about this issue. And then all he says is, "To our federal union, it must be preserved." And as he does it, he stares down his Vice President Martin Van Buren, who'd been a strong advocate for the doctrine of nullification, actually the one who wrote the document anonymously. And just how he's saying, "Yeah, I know you wrote it, and I stand against that." And Van Buren's response is also pretty fascinating. "The Union, next to our liberty most dear." Holy crap. I would like to be at that dinner party. But then how he handles that crisis after when South Carolina basically elects to nullify the terrorist of abomination, and how he sends the military in, and he preserves the Union. I think that was a good move by him. But again, it shows us that reality is not black and white. History is not black and white. It's much more nuanced. There's much more gray. Another really interesting trend of this era was the democratization of politics, and how that actually leaks into the democratization of religion, and maybe inversely, democratization of religion leaked into the democratization of politics, and that the Great Awakening, this belief that we all have an individual choice to choose or reject God, and that we're all equal in God's eyes, rich or poor, black or white, male or female, and the political ramifications of that religious thing. It's very fascinating, and I never knew that kind of the historical background from which Mormonism arose, and how Joseph Smith was from upstate New York, the burned over district, and how he rose out of that. Pretty interesting stuff. Anyway, I thought it was a good period, and I think there's some good lessons for us. Maybe that whole partisan divide, and we should stop thinking. We should think less about what our political party believes and what we actually think is right and what actually works. So, thank you very much. Bye.